Page 19, Sharice. 6 people are already in the math room when I get there on Monday. This kind of surprises me a little. I take a look around the doorway first, because if it's only me and Mr. Collins, I don't plan on sticking around. But then I see Ashley and Deandra from math class. They're hanging all over Terrell, how desperate can you be, and passing a bag of chips back and forth. Marcel is there too, acting like his usual self. He's sitting on the edge of Mr. Collins's metal desk, banging a rhythm on the side of it with his shoes. And James is in the corner near the windows, not paying attention to anybody, with his head down on his desk and the hood of his gray sweatshirt pulled up. Since I'm not crazy about Marcel, and definitely not James, I slide into the desk next to Rondell and thunk my backpack on the floor. "Hey, girl," I say, trying to be friendly, even though Rondell is a real hard person to figure out. She's plain looking, but not in an ugly way, and she's smart, but not in a lord it over your head way. And she's friendly, but not in a real friendly way. "Hi, Sharice," she says, glancing up quick from the book she's reading and then back again. To tell you the truth, it kind of surprises me that she actually knows my name, because Rondell is one of those people who seem like they wouldn't be bothered with knowing people's names at all because they have too many other important things to think about. I take a stick of gum out of my purse and unwrap it slowly. Mr. Collins's math room isn't much to look at. First of all, it's on the 3rd floor and the ceiling leaks. So there's always a couple of garbage cans in the middle of the room with the words "Do not move" written on them in permanent marker. And the blank walls drive me crazy whenever I'm sitting in class. If it was up to me, I'd fix the ceiling and hang up something, anything, and that would be a big improvement. I can't decide if coming to the math room is going to be any better than hanging around the Washington Boulevard Public Library day after day, with the librarians giving me their usual over-the-nose stares and asking me if I have some school stuff I should be working on. You see, foster non-parent number 5, Jolynn, doesn't allow anybody in home when she isn't there. And since she isn't there most of the time, I'm not allowed to be there either. Which is why I mostly end up sitting in the blue plastic library chairs or in the mall food court, or riding around on the city bus, or wherever I can find a seat without too many weirdos or drunks around. After I pop my gum into my mouth, Mr. Collins comes into the room. His face doesn't look real thrilled to see us. He goes straight to his desk and starts shuffling through his stack of papers and books like he always does before he starts teaching. This better not be a rerun of math class, I think to myself. Finally, he looks up, clears his throat, and says, "So all of you are here to build a tetrahedron, right?" "No," a muffled voice calls out from the corner of the room. "Don't want to be here at all. Don't care about no stupid geometry." Mr. Collins doesn't answer James, but I notice his face gets a shade more red. "Well, this is the first time I've tried something like this, so all of us are going to learn this as we go along," Mr. Collins continues in a not very confident sounding voice. "I'm going to put a chart up on the board and we'll get started." Then he turns towards the chalkboard and takes about 10 minutes to draw a big chart using a yardstick to make every line perfectly straight and erasing any place where they cross over. Mr. Collins is one of those white teachers who looks like he never gets out in the sun much. He's soft-looking in terms of muscles and kind of thin, and his light brownish hair is always parted too far to one side, in my opinion. He writes the words "tetrahedron team" at the top of the chalkboard. He puts each of our names first and last on the chart, and of course he spells my name with an E, Sharice, and the same as he always does. I just shake my head and think, "Sharice, how come you can teach math and you can't remember a simple thing like that?" As Mr. Collins fills in his chart, I get the feeling that he doesn't have a clue about how to run an after-school club. I've been in just about every club there is, because being in one means you don't need after-school daycare. And if you don't need after-school daycare, it means your foster non-parents can keep more of the money that they get for you. So I've been in a spelling club, a cheerleading club, Brownies, foster non-parent number 2 was head brownie, dramatics club, and even a hairstyle club. I'm almost an expert on clubs, you know. When the teacher finishes our names, I put up my hand. You going to elect a secretary and a president next, I say, because I'm good at being secretary. Mr. Collins rubs his nose and says, sure, all right, let's do that. And he writes secretary next to my name without even taking a vote. Marcel says he'll be president and Terrell wants to be vice president. And I want to be vice president to the vice president, says Smart Mouth from the corner of the room. The teacher doesn't even argue with James. He just writes VP2 next to James's name. I keep trying to help Mr. Collins, even though I don't know why. Maybe we should make a list of supplies for the project, I suggest, and I can write them down. Since I don't know the first thing about building tetrahedrons, I get out a sheet of paper and wait for the teacher to tell us what we'll need. Glue, he says. I look up. What kind? Elmer's glue? Rubber cement? Glue sticks? I don't know. We'll have to see, Mr. Collins answers in an uncertain voice. I don't think he does crafts very much. What else? I asked, writing a neat number 2 on my list. I'm a very neat person because most foster non-parents don't like messy kids. So I keep my clothes folded in the drawers and my bed always made. Hey, at least it gives them one nice thing to say about me. A pattern. Some type of tetrahedron pattern. From where? I ask. Mr. Collins rubs his eyes. I don't know. I'll have to find one. All right. Number 3. Scissors, Mr. Collins says, and heavy paper. I write scissors and paper carefully on my list. What color paper? I ask. Deandra shouts out, red, 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 like it's the last color on earth. White's cheaper than colored paper, I try to say, because I know a lot about how to get along on not much. For instance, nobody would notice that my shirt is about 2 years old and a hand-me-down from one of my old foster non-sisters. I always iron my shirts with Jolene's iron so they will look almost new. What do we care about money? Deandra shoots back at me. If we're going to be famous, who cares? From the back of the room comes James's voice again. Rainbow colored, he says, just being a smart mouth. Why don't we get rainbow colored paper? All in favor of using rainbow colored paper, I say, because it isn't that bad of an idea, you know. Why not use all the different colors if money doesn't matter? And everybody votes in favor except James, who doesn't vote at all. He tugs his hood tighter over his head and mumbles that we are a bunch of losers. Marcel tries to tell him to chill, but he gets a punch in the arm for being dumb enough to say that to James Harris. Mr. Collins shuffles through his papers and pretends not to see any of it. Even with James Harris in the club and Mr. Collins not knowing much about running one, I have a good feeling about it as we get up to leave. I figure that working on something, even math, has got to be better than sitting in the mall or the Washington Boulevard Library day after day waiting on Jolene. You never know. Maybe I would turn out to like the math club so much, foster non-parent number 5 would have to come looking for me. Now, wouldn't that be a real change?